And a 1, and a 2, and a 1, 2, 3. Welcome back, everybody, to the Small Business Safari. We are going to rock another great episode. This is going to be one that's near and dear to both of Alan and my heart, talking about marketing and helping you with your marketing strategies. I'm really excited to have Stephanie from Sizzle Marketing.
Sizzle Force.
Sizzle Force, right?
It's such a cool name.
I know, right? You just want to go Sizzle Force. I mean, I just want to Sizzle Force through my marketing. But Stephanie, I won't go through your bio. I've read your bio a little bit, but just tell us a little bit about where the hell you're from and what you do.
Yeah, okay. Well, I am from San Diego, California, and I started in marketing in 1995, got a degree in journalism in college, and then in 1995 started working in the newspaper industry because .com didn't exist at the time. And then, it wasn't too long after that the internet became a thing and websites started popping up for normal people outside of the government, and gotten all involved in that. And here we are, it's 2023 and I'm still in marketing.
There you go. How about that? She's like the only person I've ever met who's actually stayed in the same industry.
That is true. That's impressive.
Definitely not a guy like me. But before we get started, San Diego, which only varies like 2 degrees a year.
Yeah.
So we're coming from Atlanta, but you know what we forgot to do?
Cheers.
We forgot to say cheers. So Stephanie, today we're going to have a little glass of Whistle Pig rye whiskey.
That's right.
And while we talk with you and talk a little bit more about marketing and what have you there. So you started in the newspaper business, and this got to be fascinating at the time because that's all we knew. A lot of people, even us as we get older, I think we forgot what it was like not to have the internet.
Right.
But the newspaper, that was it. The newspaper and the radio, and then of course the 4 channels we had on TV.
God forbid the president was on.
Yeah, because you couldn't get to watch anything.
That's right.
So what was the most fun about getting into the newspaper business? And did you have this glamorous movie star view of it before you got into doing papers?
Yeah, I did. I definitely did. We've all seen how Hollywood portrays the newsroom, right? And, it's bustling and hustling and all the breaking news and all the juicy stuff happens in the newsroom. And so that definitely was my perception. I ended up not working in the newsroom, though. I ended up working in the advertising department, instead of writing news stories, I was writing advertisements for clients.
Really? All right. So you were actually doing the advertising writing. Alan, just to do a quick aside, I did my first radio spot and it's playing, has been for the last 2 weeks on WSB here, which is our local 7.
No kidding. Good for you.
Yeah. So I went in there to see how this goes. So they wrote my 30-second copy and then I, of course, had to tweak it. But I went in to do that. And I would tell you what, it's as cool and romantic as I thought it was going to be. And got into the studio, had the headphones on, got it all going. So you're trying to come up with all these really cool words. What was the best one you ever did, or the one that lasted the longest?
You know what? One of my favorites, this happened literally right when the internet started to become a thing. I wrote an ad that went in a magazine that said "Surf San Diego without getting wet."
Oh, that's nice.
Come on.
And I was like, oh, I'm so cute.
She was sizzling before she was sizzling.
That was my favorite.
I love that one. Surf San Diego without getting
because we
wet.
used to say that. I mean, it sounds so antiquated now, surf the web, but back then that was like the coolest thing ever. So yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. All right. So we did talk about the sizzle and the marketing. You actually have a passion towards telling a story. And that has to be coming from your newspaper background, is that you still see that stories win. Let's talk about that one a little bit more. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you told stories then, and when you jumped into digital marketing, did you leave the storytelling behind because you figured you had to get into this new world and it was all different?
No, not at all.
Well
no,
done.
I brought the storytelling with me. I've always been a storyteller, always, and a story writer. Okay. So I got, trained in school to do it. And it's a passion. It's part of how my DNA, I think. I think everybody has a really, really interesting story. And we live in a world filled with all kinds of circumstances that create really fascinating stories. And I love telling them. So whatever medium I'm using, it's kind of doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter if I'm telling the story through an ad or in the newspaper, or I'm telling the story. You're talking about radio spots. I wrote so many radio spots. So, sometimes telling a story that way, sometimes telling a story on a website, sometimes telling a story in a Facebook ad, right? There's so many different ways. And storytelling is the oldest form of communication. And I think the reason why, if you go back to the caveman days, right? We go into the old caveman day caves, we're going to find a bunch of hieroglyphics and basically stories painted on the walls, right? And
yeah, Alan talks a lot about how he used to draw.
Yeah, I was going to say, Chris just got back from Vegas, so I imagine you added a few stories to.
Oh, I've definitely got some stories. I'm not going to go on this case.
So on your bio, you talk about humanizing commerce. Is that what you're talking about with the stories?
Yeah, because a lot of times, especially the way it was when I started my career, there was a very, very firm line between business and pleasure, right? And it was the way that it was expected to be. Business was over on the left side, pleasure or personal was over here on the right side, and the two did not commingle at all, right? Well, when the world started to adopt this new way of finding things online and whatnot, there started to be message boards, if you remember those, okay? Message boards like Yahoo message boards. And all of a sudden, people started to be real in a public environment, okay? And I think that was the beginning of really creating an authentic stage, if you want to say. And awesome. So, yeah.
That's the gold nugget right there. And she talked about that. And so Alan and I, both corporate America refugees in the corporate world. And absolutely, there was a very strong line between business and personal. I did not invite friends over to go out. I didn't socialize with necessarily wives and spouses. That's just not the way we did it. It was business, and then we did that. Now, occasionally, would we? You bet. But not in. And now today, especially in the digital world, being authentic out there and being yourself. I've been coached to do that, right? Chris, you got to be yourself. I'm like, I don't think you know who I am, buddy.
Well, and don't you think like big companies almost take on a personality because people want to know about the company and how it was founded and what's their level of civic involvement, what causes do they stand for, and it's just part of this overall personality that's being created for a company.
Yeah, absolutely. And most big companies have invested millions and millions of dollars into creating their persona.
And is that something that you help them do?
Sure is.
All right, well, tell us a story. Yeah. Tell us a story, funny lady.
Tell you a story. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what story I could share with you. You want to give me another little prompt here?
All right, I'll give you a prompt. So what I meant was, we again know that you've worked with Starbucks. You've worked with a lot of the Fortune 500 companies and helped them craft a story. Talk about how you came in and maybe help them go, listen, guys, right now you're bland, but if you tell this story, it's going to help you.
It usually starts, now it depends on the size of the company, right? But it usually will start by sitting down with the founder of the company. And I do an extensive interview. This is where I tap into the old journalism skills, right? And do an extensive interview and asking a lot of questions about their journey and how did they get to this place of launching this company? What was the route? And I go all the way back to childhood. Talk to me about your childhood. Talk to me about what happened there. It feels a little bit like a psychoanalysis, but what happens in the result of doing this is that people start to see that none of this was by chance, none of this was by coincidence, and there is always an alignment of circumstances or events that have happened in their life that led them to where they are now.
Have you ever made anybody cry in the process?
All the time.
Are you serious?
Yeah, big guys, big tough men cry like babies when they read their story because they're like, how did I not see that?
Let it out, Chris.
I'd go down bad. I know. I got a feeling right now. I felt like, that'd be the thing when she walked in. I'm like, all right, you're not going to make me cry. Like that Harvey Firestone, the guy who used to do these touchy-feely sports interviews. They're like, all right, you're not going to make me cry.
Well, I can imagine she comes in and some people are like, oh, come on, really? I just want the catchy jingle.
Yep.
And next thing you know, they're putting up with your questions, and then next thing you know, they're calling their therapist and crying on the couch.
Yeah, well, I don't leave them in a sad place. That's the difference. Okay, so it's going to make me, I'm going to sound like I'm not a nice person, but I actually am a really nice person. But I know I've done my job well when I write a story and my client cries. So my goal is to make you cry, right?
Well, honestly, yes, you're right. And you're not a bad person for making us cry. I've been through a lot of therapy to learn that. By the way,
I have gotten in touch with yourself, Chris. I'm proud of you.
I've learned. Yeah.
Well, you know what happens? What that means is you've actually revealed some truth and some meaning and some depth and something that actually matters.
Bingo. Talk about that. And how about making a connection with a customer by telling your story of how your company started and why you started it and where you came from? I mean, like you said, you went all the way back to childhood. Which is how I ended up starting my business. I was in banking of all things, and I grew up just working on houses for funsies. That was our vacations when I was a kid. And here I am now in home repair and remodeling here in Atlanta. But here's a question for you. When you talk to these people, sometimes we're not in the best headspace at the time. Are we having a lot of fun right now running our businesses? I just wonder, I think a lot of people probably are not. But when you start talking about the history, how you started it, do you see a little glimmer in their eye on how they kind of bootstrapped and made it happen and went through those hard times and got to where they are?
Yeah, absolutely. It reignites the dream, kind of reignites the vision, gets them back into a place where they're like, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing it. Oh yeah, this is what I'm called to do. Oh my gosh, I have a purpose. I'm all back in.
See, and I'm happy again.
Right.
Yeah.
See, she brought me back. Now I'm happy. I'm crying tears of joy.
So when you first started doing this, my guess is you were way ahead of the curve, and people are like, "What are you doing?" And now what you're doing is maybe more mainstream.
I like to say that I was authentic before being authentic was cool.
Yeah, now authentic is almost a word that's getting overused, isn't it?
It is overused, but I was humanizing commerce long before it was a trendy thing to do. And honestly, long before it was even acceptable in the workplace.
I was going to say, hang on. So I agree. She definitely was a ground blazer on this, but let's think
ground
about
blazer. Is that you just coined a new word?
Why, that's what I do. Brown blazer. And that's what I do. I'm ahead of my time as well. I could make up words that nobody even understands. But had you tried to be authentic, 25 years ago, internet's still coming out, and next thing you know, things are flashing across the internet that you don't want to be flashing, or you're exposing yourself more than you're supposed to. And I'm not talking about flashing.
Not Vegas, Chris.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, it had to be hard. I mean, we were pushing that envelope with customers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons that I went out on my own, right? Because there's only so much that you could do in corporate America and the way that it was and what was allowed, permissible, deemed appropriate, if you want to say. And that was one of the reasons that I went out on my own, was because I was like, you know what, there's more here that's not being talked about. And we need to be sharing these stories. It's important, and today I think about where things are today. We are more in a stage of conscious consumerism than ever before. People spend money with the companies that align with their values. Okay. So it's not, it used to be, you want to go buy cookies, you're going to go to the store, you're going to buy a package of cookies. There are a lot of people now that will only buy cookies from this brand because this brand represents what they believe in. And if it's that brand that represents what they don't believe in, they will not buy those cookies.
It's almost like politics now. And people are going to just start stumbling over themselves with this. I've been watching this a little bit too. And, you're starting to see, Hollywood, you've got actors who are very open about their politics. And then you wonder, okay, is this going to start leading to people not going to see this person's movies, but they're only going to go see that person's movies? And it's going to be an interesting thing to watch, I think.
Well, you can even think about like what's happening with Twitter now. Okay. The Elon Musk, you either love him or you hate him. There's not very many middle of the road people. He's He's got a strong personality. Okay. So one guy owns Twitter and there's all these people on it. Elon Musk comes in with his political opinions and a bunch of people leave Twitter and a bunch of advertisers leave Twitter, right? It's just a social media platform. Like, what in the world? Why are people making these decisions? But it's because it's the stage that we're in right now as humans. Conscious consumerism is a thing. And it's a matter of how you spend your money, how you spend your time, who you associate with. And it goes on and on and on.
Well, you guys are taking me down a deep path because there was a question I want to ask her in the beginning, and I'm going to go back to it. So I'm just going to do it. A lot of times we talk about you got to tell a story, but a lot of people still don't know how to. What are the good elements of a story? If I'm a person listening to this podcast, and we've got a number of them who small business is trying to scale, what is a good story? Maybe I'm not the best storyteller. How do I tell a story?
That's a good question, Chris.
Thank you.
That's actually an excellent question. So I'm actually certified with a company called StoryBrand. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that the creator of StoryBrand, Donald Miller, has deduced how to tell a great story better than anybody else that I know. And so I'm going to
his books are amazing.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to share his formula with you. And I just want to make sure that I have this.
Have you ever read any of his books?
I didn't make it all the way through.
Blue Like Jazz?
I know. I didn't read that one. I forget which one I started and I didn't. Great story. Don't get me wrong. I just ADD.
Yeah, you are.
All right, I'm ready.
Here's how it works, right? There is a character in every story, and this character has a problem. Now, it might be, a real life-threatening problem, or it might just be an inconvenience. Nonetheless, it's a problem, whatever magnitude of a problem it is, okay? So this person is feeling a certain way because of this problem. It's impacting their life. And there are things that happen in their conversations with their trusted confidants, okay? There are things that are said in, thoughts that go through their mind late at night when their head is on the pillow. And then there are the things that they say to people about this problem, people that they don't necessarily have that level of trust with, okay? And then there's a philosophical belief that the philosophical belief about why it's wrong to have this problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm tracking.
Okay. So then this character ends up meeting a guide, and the guide is typically the company that is going to work with this person that has this problem. Okay. The guide is going to present them to the solution they're looking for. So you want to introduce next who the guide is, why they can be trusted, and build up their credibility. And then you want to get into the next part of, sorry, you guys, I'm sorry. Can you hang 1 second?
Yeah,
Can
go.
you pause recording?
Yeah, hang on 1 second.
I apologize. Sorry.
So, Chris, it's kind of like Luke Skywalker meets Yoda is where we are.
100%.
Oh, now you're talking my language.
Okay, I just want to, I knew you said you were tracking, but I knew you weren't.
Right.
There we go. Okay.
Go
ahead, Stephanie.
That's actually an example they talk about in the StoryBrand book.
Oh.
So the guide, their credibility is proved, right? But they also express empathy, right? So in a great story, the guide is always going to be empathetic toward the problem the character has. Then the guide is going to create a plan to solve their problem, okay? Then they are going to call them to action, okay? So these are the steps you need to take to solve your problem, and this is the action that you need to take, okay? Click this button, buy this product, whatever it might be. Then they paint the picture of what it's going to look like on the other side. You're going to avoid these failures, and you're going to experience these successes. And those are the elements of a great story.
I'm already coming up with the next one. I'm going to call ourselves the Fairy Handyman.
I think we need to work that through a little bit.
All right. Yeah. All right. No, that well said. That was well, I don't know because I didn't read Donald Miller's book, but I will. And if you want to give us an introduction to him, we'll have him on too. I'm just kidding. No, I think that's well done. So then for those listening, and for me, I'm picking that up as well. This is different than the way you thought maybe a story was supposed to be said, because this is not kindergarten how to tell a story. This is how to tell a story in today's world. And there's a lot of things that you can follow there on what you want to put out there on your personal brand, on whether it be LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you're doing it on, Twitter. But telling that story consistently like that will eventually pay off. And I think that's great. That's great stuff. I just love that stuff.
Yeah, well, and if you look at it, I mean, honestly, I dare you guys to try and read a book, watch a television show, see a movie, go to a play, whatever, and tell me if you ever see something again where there's not a character with a problem that expresses how they feel about the problem, who meets a guide that gives them a plan to action, and then they live happily ever after.
And then it's 2 photon torpedoes down the tube and the Death Star blows up.
Yes. Thank you, Luke. And Yoda says, do. So that's awesome. You know, I was actually running through this in my head. I'm like, I'm going to find one. No, you're not. All right, stop. Let's get back to the podcast. Okay. Thank you.
Are you with us?
Yeah. All right. So let's go to the journey of leaving corporate America, which we have done, and going out on your own. Did you have clients? Did you have a plan? Did you say, man, this first year I'm going to just be set. I'm going to be balling. I'm going to be doing 2 hours a week of work and making 3 times as much as I wanted? Or did you really just go, I'm not sure what I'm about to do, but I'm going to go do this?
The latter is much closer to my story. No, I did not take clients with me. I didn't do any of that. No, I actually was craving something quite different. So, I really enjoyed my corporate career. I learned a lot. It was great experience. That was cool. But when it was time to go, it was time to go. And it was time to peel a different orange, so to speak, and start something new and find something new and yummy and juicy inside. Right. So cool. That's what I did.
So when did you land your first client?
When did I land them?
Yes.
It was pretty quick thereafter because I was hungry. I was newly married.
Isn't that motivating?
Yeah, hunger is a good motivator for sure. I was hungry. I kind of wired to be a hunter, if you want to say. I love to win. A little competitive, maybe a lot competitive with others, but also with myself. So for me, it was like, okay, I'm hungry. I don't like being hungry. I better do something really fast. And so I started smiling and dialing, and there you go.
Love it.
Well, I've got 2 questions, but the first one just in this thread was, were your first clients kind of rebels because you're heading down a different path than a traditional marketing firm?
My first clients were actually nonprofit Christian organizations. So
yes, the answer was yes then.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. So I specifically went into a niche where I knew the stories were going to be really heartfelt and the stories were going to be really transformational and really authentic. And they were much more willing to try this.
So you honed your craft, but based on what I know about nonprofit organizations, they don't have the ability to pay well. So there had to be
you would be surprised.
Really?
Well, it depends on the size of the organization. So,
nice. She might be saying God provides in ways.
So that may dovetail into my next question, which is, okay, you just told us what the components of a good story are, and there's a guide. Who was your guide?
Wow, that's a great question. I can't believe no one's asked me that before, but I don't think anybody has.
Let's go. All right. He gets one.
You got all the good questions today.
Well, we're still tied.
No, Chris had one.
We're one and one. Yes. All right. So who's your guy?
I don't know.
I think I broke Stephanie.
You might have broken me. You might have. Because I'm like, who was my guide? I felt like I just figured this all out as I went. I don't think I had a guide.
I don't need no stinking guide.
You know what? I am your guide, Alan. That's what you should have said, Alan. I am your guide. Hey, I'm here to make you.
All right.
cry,
Well, I'll
buddy.
ask a different question, Stephanie. Could you have written a longer book title?
Well, come on, that's not super nice.
That I think we just unveiled a little bit about a character that we have, and there's a problem over here tonight. If you know what I mean.
Well, okay. So you do need to understand that there are two people, published authors, and they're not me.
That's
so
right.
I tend to take it every time we start talking about books.
All right. So to be honest, Stephanie, it's not you. It was me. I'm the mean one. And I'm the one who always picks on him for not writing a book. So he was trying to throw the first salvo, figuring I would come to your defense, which I'm about to. And like, listen, buddy, it ain't about the title, about what's behind there, right? And the fact that she's a published author, suck it.
She's an international bestseller, Chris. How many
Well, I am international.
Okay.
I do know that the books have been sold internationally because something had to get translated, which is cool.
That is cool.
Right.
What language?
Spanish.
Nice.
Right. But bestseller, if it's a category of From the Zoo to the Wild, your guide to entrepreneurial freedom and wealth, I am definitely in first place, if that's the category.
Okay, you guys want to know a little marketing secret?
Yeah.
There's a reason behind the long title.
Yeah.
It's not just because I like words. The reason is keyword optimization. You optimize your title to have certain keywords that the target market is looking for, and they're going to find your book when they're looking on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or whatever.
See, Stephanie, it was not a mean question by me. It was a setup for you to show your awesomeness.
Yeah. So you might notice. That,
wow, you're smarter than I ever thought, and I've known you for a long time.
I've got my days.
No, that was good.
I took a pill.
All right, so let's talk about the book a little bit. When did you write it? Why did you write it? Tell everybody a little bit about it, and then we'll plug it. Of course, we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah,
because we're going to keyword optimize the heck out of this too.
Excellent.
There are a lot of keywords in that title.
There are a lot of keywords.
She's so much smarter than you, Chris.
Oh, hey, trust me, I know that.
I published the book in 2018. I wrote it. Well, as a writer, it's something I'd always dreamed of doing, of writing my own book. So I wrote it because it was a dream and I wanted to do it. I didn't want it to, my dream to die in the grave with me. And what was your other question?
So a little bit more about the why. You wanted to write a book, but so why this book and what's in it that people should get out of it?
Yeah, I wanted to write something that showed people how they can create a heart-centered brand that stands out in a noisy world. Okay, it goes back to storytelling, the heart-centeredness. I just feel like there's just been this gap in the world for so long about like, where's the heart? It's so much about commerce. Where's the heart? People are driven by emotions. People make purchasing decisions based on emotions. A lot of people say, no, I don't. I make all my decisions based on logic. Yeah, right. Okay. You don't. People just don't. And we know that. And so I'm like, if we can get more heart into commerce, it will serve so many greater purposes, right? It will give so much more meaning to things, but it will truly lead to transformation. It will do all the good things. And so I wanted to show people, well, how do you create a heart-centered brand? What does it look like? And one that isn't just heart-centered and all fluffy and gooey, but something that actually makes your company stand out, because the marketplace is so noisy. It is so noisy. All of us are seeing and hearing thousands of messages every day. Our brains can only retain so much information. So how company say something that people are not going to forget?
And we spend so much of our time now avoiding ads.
Exactly.
And so to make it stand out, I mean, it has to be powerful and quick.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I'm going to have my sales guys do when we go do estimates, I'm going to have them bring pictures of them and their dog. Even if they don't have one, I'm going to have them pose with it and say,
just go rent a dog.
Me? Yeah. Wouldn't you buy it for me? I have a cute dog. That's not it. That's not it. Damn it.
No, sorry.
And that's not authentic either.
That's a shallow story.
With a fake dog.
Chris, you need a better guide.
Well, I think we found out who I am. Shallow and fake.
Well, that's your story.
Hey, you gotta have
back to Vegas. All right, I have another question for you, Stephanie. So one of the things that you do, there's the number one mistake that entrepreneurs make. I have a guess.
This is the number one mistake entrepreneurs make when marketing their small business.
Is that what it is?
I want to know because I'm pretty sure I did it. And I still continue.
The number one mistake small business owners make is that they jump into what we call tactical implementation before developing their strategy. Okay. So they say, great, I'm in business. I'm going to get a website. I'm going to get a business card. I'm going to, put all my social media profiles up there. And then they have no strategy behind it. They have no clarity about who their ideal client is. They have no clarity about what they really care about that motivates them to make purchases. They don't have their message clear. So they start populating the internet and all of their other marketing materials with information that is just kind of haphazard, and it's like throwing spaghetti against the wall, and it doesn't work. It doesn't move anything. People don't end up buying. They don't meet their goals. Then they get all frustrated and say it doesn't work. And the fact is, it does work. It's you didn't have your strategy planned out before you jumped into the tactics.
I love that. So don't jump right into the tactics. Make sure you have a strategy. I felt like, I did that, talking about getting my avatars, because that was the thing I did to make sure that I knew who my target market was. And I can't tell you how many handymen that I've met now throughout the nation. And they're single man shops. We got 40 people in my company, but a lot of these guys are smaller, 1, 2, 3 people shops. No strategy, no idea. And the same thing. They're like, well, I was told I got to have a web page, and I got my business card, and hey, what do you think about my wrap and my logo? And of course, number one, it's a crazy logo. It's got a million things on it. They don't really know who they're going to, because they're just going to go to whoever gives them business. And they're just not thinking through their strategy on who they really want to work for. And that's where we have to go figure out who we're trying to work for.
Does that back into just not taking enough time with your business plan?
Yeah, I think a business plan is kind of old school. I think.
Well, look at who you're talking to, Stephanie.
Yeah.
She clearly didn't read my book.
Yeah, our podcast is a Zoo to the Wild, old school.
It is old school. Yeah. And we are old. I don't know if you can't see this, but we'll be on YouTube. There's a lot of gray hair on one side of this.
But just because we're old doesn't mean we don't know what we're talking about. And I mean, don't you think, blocking and tackling the basics of a business plan are still valid today, regardless of what's going on in the world? Don't you think? Did we lose her? She froze.
I think you broke Stephanie.
I broke Stephanie again.
Or in the grand world of podcasting, Ed, you're going to have to really back up, because we've lost Stephanie for a minute. Her feed has frozen.
And I'm not hearing myself again very well.
Okay.
But that may be okay.
Well, wait a minute, Alan. Let me jump in, because I have to do this. All right. So Alan wants to talk business plan, but I want to just talk about this. I think if you jump in and just start doing all that stuff that those handymen are doing, web page, this and that, it's just a great way to lose a lot of money, because you're going to let somebody take a lot of money from you and spend a lot of money that you didn't have. So when you talk about having a good strategy, what are the components that we should be thinking about before we do this, before we embark on it?
One of the most important things is to identify how your company is different from every other company that offers a similar product or service. Okay, so if you have a bunch of handyman companies out there, well, who can help me fix my garage door? Everybody. Well, what makes you better at fixing garage doors than the next guy? I don't know. I'm cheaper. That's what most people do. They go to the price wars, right? Well, here's the thing. I mean, we live in a global marketplace now. There's always someone who's going to work for less than you. Always.
100%.
So you're going down a slippery slope when you play that game. Real slippery slope. It can lead you to poverty if you're not careful. So I always tell people, figure out how you're different and don't make it your price. Right? Figure out how you're truly different and better than your competition, and start articulating that.
And so
that's why you have a dog.
And that's why I'm going to go get my fake dog, put him in. No, so here's the thing. It's just a timestamp. This is the beginning of the year 23. I take a lot of my leadership, and we do a strategic offsite meeting. And one of our breakout sessions is exactly that. How do we go out there and market our unique better than we are today based on the survey, the information I'm going to give them? That's one of the breakout sessions.
You're so 2023, Chris.
Dude. I'm feeling so cool. Right? In fact, she's validated me. She completes me. Thank you.
She's your guide now.
Here's something that's really important to make sure that people do. A lot of times when I say, well, how are you different from your competition, to one of our clients, they might say something that's very touchy-feely. We really care.
Yes.
Okay. And you're in business. That is not a differentiator. That is not a differentiator. Give me something quantifiable. Give me something that can be proven with fact. Okay. That is a differentiator.
That's a good one.
And sometimes, though, don't you get into some industries where it's hard to come up with that differentiator? Is that where, your magic skills come in?
That's why they hire me.
Did you see the twinkle in her eye?
Big bucks.
Just for the listeners, there was a big twinkle.
I love that. Great setup, Alan. All right. So you work with companies of all sizes, I imagine, and different marketing budgets, clearly. If I'm a newer person just starting out, and I guess newer starting out is probably relative. Let's say they're in it for a couple of years and they finally they're looking at doing even more marketing. How much should they expect to spend a year?
Depends how quickly you want to grow, right? Depends how aggressive you want to be out in the marketplace. I mean, I have seen, some very small companies say, I'm a small business, but I got big dreams and I don't have a lot of time to waste. So I'm going to go and hit it hard. And they might invest 30% of their gross revenue, right? That's a huge chunk, but they might do that because they want to be aggressive. Then there's much more conservative companies that will say, oh, we're going to give 5%. If you're giving less than 5% of your gross revenue, you're leaving a lot of opportunity on the table.
So they always say that 50% of your marketing budget is wasted. You just don't know which 50%. And so it's tough when you're a small business owner and okay, they're telling me to spend more money, but I'm not comfortable with this amount of money. How do I know this is going to, what would you say to somebody to make them feel better about upping their budget like that?
Well, I think if you're working with the right marketing expert, they're going to have the case studies that show they know what they're doing.
Oh, see, there's a good one.
So I think, that confidence to invest more comes from working with someone that you trust. And that trust is built by experience. And the marketer saying, well, this is what I did for so-and-so and so-and-so. So if I can do it for them, why can't I do it for you? Right? Now, another mistake people often make when they're early in their business is, my 17-year-old nephew, he's on that TikTok thing all the time.
Right.
I'm going to have him do our TikToks and manage our social media. Okay. Now I'm speaking right now as a mother of 3 teenagers. Okay. 15, 18. Well, now just turned 20. Okay.
By the way, we see your office. Your kids are not allowed in your office. I can see that right now.
No way. There is no flipping way.
So clean.
You just said 3 boys.
I had 2 boys and a daughter.
Okay. Yeah. And there's no way. They're not allowed.
The pictures are all straight.
I know. All right. So 19 just turned 20, 15. And how old was the other one?
18.
Oh boy.
Okay. So here's what I can tell you. My kids are on social media all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Do they know how to market a business on social media? Absolutely not.
Not especially to us.
And I would be so foolish if I said, hey, sweetie, come here. Hey, I need you to do something on TikTok for me. They'd be like, cool. And they would do something from the vantage point of a teenage brain, which, as we all know, is not fully developed. And it shows, right? Love you, kids. Love you so much. But no, you cannot run my business marketing.
Yes, I identify as a teenage brain. Thank you, Alan.
You saw that look on my face.
He's looking at me and I'm like, yes.
You still have a teenage brain. That's the only thing.
I do. That's the only thing I've got. Yes, I'm just in the body of a really old man.
I have one more question because I know we're running out of time.
All right. Yeah, keep going.
So you talk about how to make your website a conversion machine. And I've been part of organizations where, okay, we're getting the hits. and then we see where they're landing on the page, and they're spending a certain amount of time on the page, and we just can't get them to convert.
Mhm.
So what can you bring to the table on that?
Please be my guide.
Yeah, that's right. You need to be Yoda. Be Yoda right now, Stephanie.
Right. Okay. Well, one thing that a lot of people forget, it's pretty simple, is they forget to tell people what they want them to do. Right? They just assume that people are gonna, they're gonna write something on a website page and people are gonna read it and then call them or book an appointment or click the buy now button, but they don't actually tell them to do it. They just passively leave their phone number up in the right-hand corner of the website. If you want people to call you and make an appointment, you need to tell them to do that, right? Because most people are followers and most people are looking for a leader. And certainly if they're looking to do business with you, they want you to be the expert and show them the way. So that's one thing, is making sure that you have very clear calls to action. I'm a big believer in, like, on a homepage specifically, having at least 5 call to action buttons.
On the homepage?
On the homepage alone.
How many do you have, Chris?
5.
No, I have 2. Yeah, I
really have 2?
I do have 2. But man,
5?
Dude, hey, I want a website conversion machine, baby, and I'm gonna go do it. You're
only 40% of optimal.
It's funny is that people say when I walk around, my buttons are out there for everybody to push. But I didn't think it was my website. You're right. I need to have my website with a lot of buttons to push.
You need to say something that matters, right? At the very, very top of your website, before anybody scrolls and, goes to another page or whatnot, you absolutely need to have a statement at the very top of your website that captivates them, catches their attention, and then makes them want to know more.
Well said. I actually, that's one thing about my website that I've directed my guys over the last 14 years is that, look, I'm a goldfish. In fact, I'm not even goldfish attention span. I'm actually deficit on that. And I said, I've got to have everything above the line. I've got to have above the fold. And these guys in the beginning, lots of graphics want to do it, especially in the beginning of the load times. I'm like, nope. I got to have something short and sweet on why you want to call me and have me help you with your stuff at your house. Yep. That's a great point.
I see lots of those call to action buttons though, and I'm afraid to click them because I just feel like I'm going to get sucked into this funnel of pain. I mean, is there
I'll give you a great
one. That's the whole point. We want you to get sucked in the funnel.
All right. So you got sucked into the vortex. Back to our Star Wars theme. I'm going to finish with this because Angie's, which now has Home Advisor, Angie's List, and they bought a couple other companies. I went out there just to do a little secret shopping. Do you know how many flipping screens I had to go through just to get somebody so I could see the list of providers? In fact, I stopped because I was at that point, I was at 12. I had gone through 12 screens before they would even show me.
You're holding up 7 fingers.
Well, because there's no way. So for me, when you go to my website, it's click, fill out a form, and you're out of here. 3 screens and you're gone.
You want to make it super fast and super easy. The more complicated you make it, the more obstacles you put in people's way, the more likely they are not to take the desired action.
Yeah. I think that's, that's the gold nugget right there, everybody. You want to beat Angie's, especially in the home services world, you make it easy. If you're not in that home services world and you want to make it easy on that first homepage, put it short, make it succinct. Do not bit this long list of reasons about why you got into business. They're not going to read it there. They want to know what they can do, what you can do to help them in their life. Wow, this has been awesome. So our fractional CMO has delivered a heart-centered guide, and I now have the short story to download.
But it isn't
now
all
I have to read books.
It's not all touchy-feely. 5 call to action buttons on one page.
I'm doing it.
That's hardcore.
I'm doing it.
You do 8.
You know what? You do better. I'm going to do better.
You do better, Chris.
As my daughter says. Do better, Dad. Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right. Let's jump into the well, before we do that,
what?
I just have a couple things I gotta. No, I'm just gonna go into this now. All right, let's go into the 5 questions. And then
5 questions.
What?
You said 5.
I know I was gonna say I'm gonna add one on you because if you're gonna add a question, then I'm gonna add one.
You already had 3.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Stephanie, you mentioned Donald Miller's book, but other than that, what is a good book that you would recommend to our audience?
The Bible.
Oh, nice.
You know what? She just mic dropped. We can't.
come on.
We
This is
can't
the
ask
first time
that
we've
for
been asked that
anybody
question.
else.
That is the good book.
Yep. Nobody can
Best
top
book.
that. Nobody can top that.
All right, ready? All right,
Yeah.
next question. What's the favorite feature of your house?
My kitchen. My husband is an architect, and my kitchen, the kitchen he designed for us, is so beautiful. Tons of light, tons of windows, big space. I love it.
What kind of grill? What kind of stovetop do you have?
I was asking the same thing.
I know.
I don't know.
Oh, see, we're a bunch of cooks.
Yeah.
We're actually a lot of foodies. So when you said the kitchen, you had me at kitchen. As soon as she said K, I was like, oh, she's a kitchen.
Do you have
Oh,
a pot? Do you have a pot
actually,
filler?
My husband is actually the cook in the house too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
good
that's
for
us. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. He's
Alan
a
and I
much
do
better
the same.
cook than I am. So he could tell you what our stovetop was, but not me. Sorry.
Beautiful. I love that you love that. That's great. All right. When you're out there in customer service land, because we are customer service
Freaks.
we're gonna have to do that again.
I
That's
just
so
swallowed
bad.
right.
Dude, this is come on, get on the game. All right. Anyway, what is a customer service pet peeve of yours when you're out there getting served in the marketplace?
Phone trees.
Phone trees. Oh, nice one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You know,
Press 1 if you want this. And then I press 1 and then it says, sorry, we didn't hear you. Please try again.
Or
Press
here's
1 if you want this. I press it again. Sorry, there must be a connection issue.
here's your 5 options, and none of them are close to what you need.
Yeah, it is so funny. Is that so? I actually implemented call centers years ago, and this is in the late '90s. And one time we implemented this call center. It was for a very large bank in the nation, and all the callers went into a queue that was not going to be answered because of the technology. And here was the solution that came down, and I'm in this call center and we're implementing it. I'm a consultant there. And they said, what you need to do is answer each call, say, thank you for calling XXXX, goodbye. Thank you for calling XXX, goodbye. And we had to do that for 100 people. And we just would call them because they had to get out of the queue to get back in.
Oh,
But
wow.
as we were designing this, one of the best call center ones that we all got to listen to, it was press 7 to hear a duck quack. You press 7, quack, quack. I'm like, you know what? That's actually, and now after here we are, 25 years later, I'm like, that's probably the best button ever.
Right.
That's the only call tree I want to listen to because the rest of you guys are just idiots.
I would push the button to hear the duck quack. I would.
Yeah. That's a great answer, Stephanie. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's a great one. All right,
Next
number
question.
3. Give us a DIY nightmare story.
All right, I got a pretty recent one for you. At one point we remodeled our bathroom and made it from like what is it called, a half bath into a full bath. And about a month ago, my daughter was taking her shower and she said, Mom, there's something growing in the shower, which is not something that any mother ever wants to hear. So I'm like, what in the world? And I go in there and there's a little sprout coming up through the drain. Come to find out, a few plumbers later, they like pulled out roots that were like 5 feet deep from trees that were growing and literally sprouting in the shower.
Oh my God. That is, I knew that story, but I've seen that. I've actually seen little mushrooms grow in showers too. But that's another story for another day.
Microgreens.
Yeah. But it's because people, when you mix the mortar, if you use water from the outside and in the old school days, we used to use it and actually used dirt, and you bring the organic material in.
Really?
Yeah. It's a long time ago, but it still happens. But that one, yes. So you had to have your drains all cleaned. Did you have to have them lined or have to have them rerun?
Well, we had to have them all cleaned, which we literally just did. And now we need to jackhammer our bathroom and remodel it again.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
As long as the kitchen's okay.
No, that actually hurts me.
Kitchen's
That hurts
gold.
my heart. That one hurts my heart. When I hear that, they just did the bathroom and had to do it again. I've had to remodel 2 bathrooms of dreams for people over the years because the
Dreams
guys
that can be nightmares.
Well, because they completely did them wrong and we had to redo them all. And
Wow.
it's you don't want to pay it for that. That's the worst. Oh my gosh, Stephanie, great stories. You are the storyteller extraordinaire and guide for all of us. How can everybody get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, sizzleforce.com. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. I got kind of a scary last name, so maybe you can put it in the show notes, a link to
Pronounce it for us,
please.
Nivinskus.
Nivinskus.
Just like it's spelled.
Right, it is.
It's phonetically correct. It's just a lot of letters, so it scares people.
It does.
It
like my
scared
last
you.
name.
You didn't use it.
I know I didn't because I realized.
I know you said this is Stephanie.
And I went, and I did. I choked on my tongue because here's the thing. It's a big
he did just get back from Vegas.
Well, yeah, and my last name is Lalvani. And I can't tell you how many times, like, I go on a podcast and they go, "Okay, I got it. All right, hey, and here's Chris Lamomia." I'm like,
right.
I actually train all of my guys to never ask the customer's last name, because the last thing you want to do is butcher that, because everybody just looks at you, especially here in the South, and goes, "Oh, bless your heart, you don't know my name."
Right.
And you're like, wait a minute, that has nothing to do with my skill set of helping you with your house. So I said, guys, just skip it. Just you use your first name. They'll introduce themselves back, call it good. And then we can work on the whole win friends and influences people later.
There you go.
I wonder what the California version of bless your heart is. I mean, in New York, it's you're dead to me.
That's true.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago that I learned bless your heart actually wasn't a nice thing to say.
You're right.
I always thought it was a nice thing to say. And people out here will say bless your heart because we think it's like, oh, that sounds so lovely. And I learned it's actually quite snarky. And I was like, no.
It can be nice, but it isn't always. I mean, the South is full of landmines.
One, and they're all definitely landmines because they're under really nice beaches, because we're nice down here, at least to your face.
That's right.
Stephanie, this has been amazing. If you didn't pick something up from here, that's on you, because you guys have got to figure out how to best market your company, keep going up that mountaintop of success, because to do it right, you got to be effective in how you're marketing, what you're doing, and getting your name out there, because people don't know who the heck you are. I just was part of a study, and that study said, unaided, how many people will know your company's name in your marketplace if you've been doing it for 15 years? And the answer was 3 out of 10 can only name a company that they've heard on the radio, but they can't name your company and can't even remember your company. And I'm talking about personal injury lawyers. I'm talking about banks. I'm talking about electrical companies. So you've got to get out there, tell that heart-centered story, because you're trying to find your target market, your avatar. Go make that happen. I was on my soapbox because I was so excited about what Stephanie talked about today. Stephanie, thank you so much. Adventure team, go out there, make it a great day. We're out of here.
Thanks, Stephanie. You're awesome.
Thank you.